काम करेंगे पहले.
Yeah, we'll wing it. So, when I say,
कौन से नंबर क्या उसे? कौन सा podcast मतलब? Which number?
I think it's 9.
Is that a new typewriter?
That's a single machine. So when I do the clap, we start.
Hello.
Damn it, once more. We're supposed to wait for 5 seconds before you say hello. Hello.
Welcome to our 8th podcast.
I think it's the 9th. Could be the 10th as well. If it's 10th, we did once more. We also did one prior, right?
Yep.
The cringe.
Where it was uncensored and everything. We discussed the scandals novels as well.
We did. I mean, we legitimately covered them with our hand, right?
Yep. Quite the nasty covers we had there.
Quite the nasty covers we had there indeed. But this is actually a pretty interesting aspect. This particular vlog is happening in the new studio.
Yep, new setup. It's not in the car either.
It's not, oh yeah, true. Because we were between setups.
We had one which was in your home as well, but wasn't it in the outside lounge?
True. And I mean, we've also been doing plenty of them, plenty of the vlogs in your own house as well. Like,
you recorded most of the audiobooks in my house as well.
Oh, true.
Why didn't you place the mic on this one?
It is placed. It's
behind it.
Oh, interestingly, the mic had to literally be wired onto the goddamn thing. That's a coat hanger wire that's used to hold it and really rig it in place. Imagine.
And we covered it with a plastic bag as well.
Noise reduction.
No, that's nice. Clever.
It's already got muffles on it, so choke it to death.
Complex engineering problem.
Complex engineering problem.
Required complex engineering solution.
But now it's already pretty much jerry-rigged in place, and I like this arrangement, which leads straight there.
That's cool.
This could be a standard arrangement whenever we're talking. In fact, whenever I do a recording, if all goes well, if the audio turns out great, then I could just use this as a setup to talk about the remaining books,
No, that would work.
That could work.
That
could work.
So, should we start talking about the books?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is the first one?
Orientalism. It's ornamentalism.
It is Orientalism.
It's
It's ornamentalist. I thought it was Orientalism. Just so you know, Orientalism by Edward W. Said. It's a really good book. It actually talks about the perspective. This book is slightly different from that.
David Cannondine.
It's specifically about the British Empire in the context of how both the recipients, the beneficiaries, as well as the benefactors of the British Empire, how they viewed themselves. How did they conduct themselves in this particular enterprise? So it talks about it not in the sense that Orientalism basically talked about the Arabs as the Arabs saw themselves, and how the French forced them into seeing themselves.
It's not how the British actually saw everyone.
It's a mix and match actually. It talks about how the British saw the Indians, how the Indians saw the British, how the African empire, how the African enterprise saw itself, its benefactors, its conquerors, and everyone, how everyone took part in it. It's a very fascinating read though.
How many colonies are mentioned in here?
Quite a lot. Southeast Asia, for sure. Like Singapore is obvious. I mean, we haven't actually put it over here, but Raffles is actually included in this collection of books that talks about the main.
I think the cover shows the subcontinent.
It is actually the subcontinent. But that was the crown jewel, so. I mean, it kind of speaks volumes itself about how they saw themselves.
Do they have Africa in it?
They do. Zanzibar, Nigeria, Uganda.
Year mentioned in here as well. Edward J. Year and all those.
Oh, yes.
Andy Morgan Stanley.
Morgan Stanley, yes. Morgan Stanley for sure is It talks about it initially and how the first explorers came over to this area. And
what I find interesting about this is when we were going through that bookstore there, you actually found Henry Morton Stanley and David Livingstone books together.
Dr. Livingstone, I presume. Wasted opportunity to say Dr. Livingstone, I presume.
I think we did that reference there when we were talking about those books because we found them at the same time at the same store for the same price. That is the same way how Henry Morton Stanley found that doctor there as well.
Oh, true. Same time, same place, same purpose.
I think Henry Morton Stanley was sent there for a more sinister purpose, but he ended up finding that guy by mistake. And he said that famous iconic I wouldn't call it a sentence, but famous iconic phrase.
It is a famous sentence though. Like he meant it in sarcasm, and then its original use, it was shown in sarcasm, but because of because of changing circumstances, it turned from sarcasm to British humor, like a Monty Python thing. It's like one could imagine that Morgan Stanley had a gun in hand and he was about to shoot the primitive tribal people. I was trying to be polite and say the local native populations through their chieftain. And Dr. Livingstone just whimsically passed by, meandered his way, promenaded in his presence. And Dr. Livingstone was just watching the shocking, horrifying display of power, and Morgan Stanley, trying to save face, basically goes, Dr. Livingstone, I presume.
I think I read somewhere that David Livingstone was actually quite happy in Africa. He was practicing his medicine there and helping other people there. But when Henry Morton Stanley came there, he thought that he wasn't happy and he pretended that he rescued him.
Oh yeah, it was very controversial actually.
Even it wasn't he was doing the rescuing, he was just making it seem like he was the one rescuing him, so he just took him with them to England.
But again, very fascinating book. Yeah. There's this interesting portion in it. Let me just tell you, just to emphasize how shocking society used to be back then. Just a moment.
That's Edmund.
No. That's King Kalakaua. Hold on. Just give me a moment. Where is Monarch? M?
I think you'll find a lot of pages on Monarch.
No. There's a very specific mention about Monarch over here. Monarchy, ceremonial. Yeah, ceremonial. Page 22. Because it's a very fascinating reference. 22?
No, this is 22. You might have 23.
Yeah, just a moment. It was. The four great dominions. Yeah, hold on, where it was. Germany. Hold on, let me check Germany. It was Germany. Yeah, page 98. Let's see.
This is about the German colonies or something. What you could do is afterward you could place bookmarks.
Obviously, I'm going to place some bookmarks, but in between, it's fascinating. And this isn't related to this observation that I wanted to make, but there is a reference to Lord Curzon. So,
Viceroy Lord Curzon.
The Viceroy Lord Curzon, which is made even more funny because the guy was a complete and total failure, not just as a viceroy, but also as a husband and a father.
And also as the Viceroy of India, he screwed up big time.
Oh, no. Oswald Mosley.
Mm-hmm.
This is true. This Peaky Blinders did not make this up. He legitimately had an affair with his mother-in-law, his wife, and his daughter.
Chris's mother-in-law wife.
Oswald Mosley had all three at the same time. I'm not even making this up.
It kind of reminds me of Motorhead's Let Me Kill Meister.
Oswald Mosley was the guy was a fascist,
Okay.
and he died a lord of a house of lord.
Right. I mean,
Fascist till the end, married into royalty, and still died with
I
honors.
don't want to sound racist, but that is what white people are like.
It ain't racist if it's true.
You know? Like most of them are fascist.
You're welcome. To racists who want to use it, it ain't racist if it's true. You're welcome.
Alright.
Next one.
The Murder of History by K.K. Aziz. I haven't read it yet, but I've been told it's a good book for anyone who's aspiring to give the civil services exam. So, yeah.
That's it. That's all your contribution is. You haven't read it. So basically,
I think it's written by
he's
Pakistan.
what he's done is he's basically talked about these. Basically, what he does is there are various chapters in it, and because it was written way back when, like he originally wrote it back in the 90s actually, and yeah, 22nd February 1993. That's when it was published. It was originally a series of newspaper articles,
Mhm.
especially lambasting the failure of maintaining a historical narrative that was well researched,
Right.
well researched, fully validated, and authentic to the actual scenario which happened. So telling it as it was, regardless of bias, which is a lot more difficult than
Is it about how? I thought it was about how people have adulterated history. And
oh yeah, every step of the way.
he's just
Every step
mentioning the
of the way.
wrong part and how they differ from.
Oh yeah, every step of the way.
Like how when you study for Cambridge, you will when you're reading history, you will realize how they praised Ziaulak a lot. But when you study what Ziaulak did in actual life, you actually realize what an evil person he was.
Like, just to give you an example, so it just talks about class 8 social studies, yada yada yada. The revolution of 1857 is called the War of Independence. Iqbal in 1930 conceived of separate Muslim states in the northwestern and northeastern part of India, where they were in the majority. The Pakistan resolution, yada yada, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And
I mean,
it continues on in this pomp and bombast, in this fantasy of the lost cause. So only the first chapter deals with history, the rest of the book treats of history, current politics, and administration.
Yeah, it kind of makes
Now,
sense.
his key
That's what-
points. One point should be recorded right away instead of being pointed out repeatedly in my commentary. Throughout the book, East Pakistan is considered, referred to, mentioned, and discussed as if it was still a part of Pakistan. No notice has been taken of the terrible crisis which overwhelmed the country in December 1971 and broke it. As the book is meant to be studied during the 2 years of class 9 and 10, it means that at least till 1974, the two highest classes of school were not told of the breakup of the country whose history they were studying.
They even made Zulfikar Ali Bhutto sound like a good guy. Even though he was the one who wrecked the elections, he made Mujibur Rahman suffer. He's the reason the massacre of 1971
And-
occurred in East Pakistan.
I mean, the same book that he's criticizing, it still is published, by the way, the history book that he's talking about. Our homeland, Pakistan, came into being in 1947, but its name had made history a few years earlier. Some people consider Pakistan to be a new country, but this is not true.
America is a new country.
Really? South Sudan came about way later in 2014. Oh, no.
Yeah.
2011 12.
Ah.
2011 12.
I mean, micronations came way after that as well.
Micronations don't count. Come on.
But still, they are something.
Oh, no. The recent most is this was this former colony of the United Kingdom. It became independent, and is now has its own setup and its own government and everything, But point is, it's not a recent country. I'm just emphasizing it's not recent.
No, it's not that reason, no.
Like Mali is recent. Mali was made independent in 65, 66.
Maldives?
Mali.
Mali.
Timbuktu.
Dubai is sort of recent.
Not really.
Abu Dhabi, like, I mean, it's not as old as Pakistan.
It's not as old as Pakistan, but
I mean, they came after Pakistan.
they
And
did.
all the development happened there after Pakistan as well. I mean, Bangladesh is more recent than Pakistan.
Oh,
True.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic that they don't talk about how profound the role that they played. Like these books that he is talking about, KK Aziz, they don't mention those acts explicitly at all, which is sad because
I mean, our history books have never discussed Black September as well, like when Zia Haq massacred a lot of Palestinians. That's not mentioned in history books.
Oh yeah, that would actually be substantially against.
Again, the 1971 massacre of the Bengalis is not mentioned in our history books as well.
Yeah.
The thing that Pakistani generals did there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things that have been whitewashed.
Yeah, more like brown wash.
Or like that part when Zia actually massacred people who belonged to movement for restoration of democracy and they were protesting against his rule.
Of course.
He actually had them killed and jailed. Pakistan actually has the youngest political prisoner. That was jailed by Zia.
Oh,
I don't remember his name. He's a very famous politician right now. But he was quite young when he was jailed. He was a kid. He's like, yeah.
In fairness, so
that's not
nothing's
in a
changed.
history book as well.
Next book.
And then we have Our Bones Are Scattered, by Andrew Ward. It's about the Kanpur massacres and the Indian Mutiny of 1857, or as most people like to call it, the War of Independence. And
have you read it ever? Have you read anything about the War of Independence though?
I've read it and I've heard about it a lot. I've seen documentaries on it. And I remember when you were talking to my dad about how Nana Sahib instigated the revolt, he made people fight over it. What he wanted Bahadur Shah Zafar out of the picture, and that is what he got.
Oh, true.
And then he vanished. So it wasn't War of Independence.
He wore glasses. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, he was a nerd. He was a dorky person.
Oh yeah, judging he covers quite a bit of it. Like the next book before we covered it, before we gone ahead with it, this specifically talks about Kanpur and uses that as a basis to describe further on in the UP how
right.
it's spread.
About everything that happened in Kanpur during that.
The lead up to Kanpur, then subsequently over to the UP. But it does mention all the major portions as well.
Good books on the Indian Mutiny.
This one though, this one right here. Saul David's The Indian Mutiny. Man, what a book! What a book!
The cover looks good as well.
You know what the funny part is? Do you know who had a big role to play in it as well? Purely on the point of incompetence? General Montgomery's great grandfather. He ignored all telegraphs explicitly talking about the mutineers entering into Delhi. He ignored them. And
he made the Pathans fight them.
He ignored all messages, knowing that the Sikh were under his command. Imagine. Just imagine, like, to those of you who do not understand the gravity of the situation, which
they
is being described. They fought the Sikhs in Punjab and won, alright?
And the Sikhs were not so happy about it.
And the Sikhs were not so happy about it. The Sikhs were not happy about it. So imagine they heard about revolts and
they're actually going to turn against the
British. They're actually going to turn against the British. Hats off to his ADC that he sorted that whole hellscape out before Lahore turned into one more Delhi or Allahabad.
No, he told me about that. And he made the Pathans.
No, that was someone. That was a separate entity. That was the Chakwalis. Oh, by the way, Chakwal, very big support of Chakwal is basically the quintessential embodiment of what martial races were from the Punjab. The British Empire's major chunk of Punjabi soldiers, right up till sergeant. Actually, corporals right up till sergeant. So sergeant major in the basically sergeants here are referring to those who were the highest ranking officers among the non-commissioned officers, but those were permanently associated with the section leading up to the company itself, the company commander, if you will. So they knew the entirety about of the company's history. They were its storekeepers, basically. So that was the Chakwalis for a very long time, and they just rallied to the call of the British Empire. So I mentioned this over to Ahmed Farouk, and I figured why not talk about it here as well. Chakwal, right? They started hearing about these mutinies happening. The Chakwalis literally told their boss, "Oh, sir, please come home with us, have a cup of tea." They're literally massacring everyone outside, and the company officer, not even the company officer, the yeah, he was a captain in lovely weather we had out there. Like there's slaughter happening. There's all these boom and bang, screaming and everything. Lovely weather we have there. Just
you can do it. You can add this VFX there. Entire screaming and gunshots and everything in this portion. You can add this VFX in the background.
Lovely weather we have here. That would be very. That was it. Was a crime
like they say in the Indian memes, बात करने में तरीका थोड़ा casual है.
But it's a very good book. It covers so many aspects about it. The lead up, right up till how it was managed. Both these books. This talks about Kanpur a lot more explicitly, and it does not shed away from the fact that there was scandal in the British ranks even back in the day. Like it talks about the guy, the main person, the main entity through whom this entire story is told, right? Wheeler, basically.
So it's told in his perspective or something?
So it's told from multiple perspectives, but leads up to him, basically. Yeah. So it talks about Wheeler, how he managed to control the Kanpur situation and such. Now the guy he was not in any way, in any form, a good guy, alright?
Yeah.
He was making advances on an officer's wife.
I mean, that is white people for you.
That is white people for you. He was making advances on an officer's wife. And both of them served in Afghanistan, by the way.
Yeah.
And when that other officer died, his name is over here. Just give me a moment.
Just one officer who survived of one war.
The second one. He was in the second one.
Uh-huh.
But even then, Thomas Oliver. That was his name, Thomas Oliver. The moment he was killed, Wheeler married his wife.
Okay. Great success, I guess.
Great success. You can't root for someone if they're just irredeemably evil, or if they're irredeemably incompetent. Just to emphasize, I'm not making this up. Let me emphasize this. Sunday, 10 May 1857 was typical of the North Indian summer. Blah 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 blah. In the telegraph office, about halfway along the 2-mile stretch of road that separated the city was here. Charles Todd, the assistant in charge, and his two young Eurasian signalers, Brendish and Pilkington, were about to return to their bungalows to rest. The telephone needle began to move. It was an unofficial message from the office and Meerut, blah blah blah. Todd discovered that the line to Meerut had been severed. He therefore sent Brendish and Pilkington across the bridge of boats to the northeast of the city to check the line. Blah blah blah.
Is it about the telegram part?
Yeah, from Ambala the news was flashed. Now this is the one, Lahore. From Ambala, the news of the Delhi outbreak was flashed north to Lahore, the capital of the Punjab, and on the other stations of that vital province that had been part of British India only since 1849. A rider was also sent to inform General Anson, the Commander-in-Chief of India, who was at Simla in the hills. The tidings from Delhi reached the civil station of Anarkali on the outskirts of Lahore during the morning of 12 May. With Sir John Lawrence, the Chief Commissioner of the Punjab, on his way to join his family in the Murray Hills, the senior civil authority in Lahore was Robert Montgomery, the Judicial Commissioner. An Ulster Protestant imbued with a godly sense of self-discipline and duty, Montgomery was at the same time a man of impulse, devoid of caution and circumspection. And it notes the complete opposite of his celebrated grandson, Field Marshal Montgomery of El Alamein.
Very dumb person.
It was just as well. Shortly after reading the telegram from Ambala, Montgomery received word from a Brahmin spy that the four native regiments at Lahore were on the verge of mutiny. After a hastily organized meeting with the senior officials, he drove over to the military cantonment at Mia Mir to ask the military authorities to confiscate the sepoys' ammunition. By a happy coincidence, the commander of the Lahore garrison, Brigadier Stuart Corbett, was also a man of resolve. Though 55 years old, about average for a Bengal brigadier, he had none of that incapacity to grasp strange incidents and new situations, none of that timid shrinking from responsibility which is so often evinced by feeble minds trammeled by the associations of long years of convention and routine. He was, in short, not your typical time serving Indian officer. When Montgomery arrived at Mia Mir with the news from Delhi and the intelligence about the Lahore sepoys, Corbett was quick to appreciate the danger. The 4,000 or so Indian soldiers at Mia Mir outnumbered the Europeans by more than 3 to 1. And basically, to disarm the sepoy, general parade was ordered for the following morning so as not to excite the suspicions of the sepoys. However, a ball hosted by the officers of the 81st Foot went ahead as planned. The evening has passed very pleasantly, yada yada. A perfect sham of smile over tears. Half the ladies were not present, and those who were there could barely distinguish their anxiety, while we gentlemen had to give the brightest picture of the case possible, though they must often have heard pieces of subdued conversations, anything but hopeful. The four Indian regiments were drawn up in columns on the grand parade at Mia Mir. Facing them at a distance of ye were the 10 6-pounders and two 12-pound howitzers of the European horse artillery, primed with canisters and ready to fire. Behind the cannon were 6 companies of the 81st Foot with loaded muskets. He literally told them to hand over their arms.
You can do well when you're reading this, You can show the text and read as well. That'd be cool.
Just Anji, आ गए. But point.
I think these books are enough as well.
These books are enough as well. Point is, they literally placed the cannons in front. In case you didn't catch that, they placed the cannons in front. They called everyone to parade, and they just told them hand arms. Basically, they just made them drill it down.
We have cannons, hand arms.
Basically,
We have big guns. You have small guns. Plus your guns.
but yeah, so pretty good thing. Not bad.
That's a good way of threatening people.
And also a good way of ending this session. So we'll just